Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Good afternoon, folks. So today it was a new setup. Let's see how this works. I'm just checking to see if the audio is working, whether there are any glitches. So the video could be glitching a little bit because I have ditched my high definition camera because it was taking one additional USB port from my laptop. Instead, I added another microphone, put somewhere else, trying to capture more piano sounds, see if it makes a difference. I don't know how it sounds. I know it works, but I don't know whether it is actually really working. So, the two things that I'm thinking about now is that whether glitches is happening or not. And well, unfortunately, I think I turned off the chat again. So I'm just going to have to learn the hard way. At least I'm seeing something being inputted, so I know I'm being recorded. So I don't mind all that. Okay, so my camera is basically a collaboration camera now, joined remotely on the same network, and that's why there could be a bit of a latency between my voice and the video. Hopefully not so much because I'm in the same household. It's the same network. Okay, so hopefully everything works. If there are glitches, I will find out soon today, and then we will talk about it. Okay, so what you have just heard is not the focus of today's discussion. We're supposed to talk about, what is it? Nocturne, Opus 32, number 2. What you have just heard is actually Chopin's F minor Fantasy, Opus 49. So, just to open the floor, it could be a nice background music as well. That I certainly need to revisit because it was a piece that I played at my last concert, and then I probably should at least warm these things back up every now and then. But I felt good with it because that was like a first read after many times, and I didn't miss too much. I missed some, but not too much. Okay, so now why do I play the Chopin Fantasy first, and then I will going to talk about the composition of interest today. Now, one thing is trying to hide the fact that I actually cannot sight read this Opus 32 number 1, this number 2 piece. It's actually rather difficult, especially the middle section, which I had some difficulty earlier that I was trying to learn. But I can probably read the opening part, which is pretty much the amount of time that we're going to spend on, which is just the opening parts, and then maybe just the first section. So why don't we hear a little bit of this nocturne also, and maybe with the backdrop of that fantasy piece that you just heard earlier. Now, I ended prematurely. It was I don't want to play on. It's a much more massive piece. But what I've ended on is a section that you might want to pay attention to. See if it still left an impression in your head. If it doesn't, that's okay. I'll play it later. But I'm now going to try to read the opening A section of Opus 32 number 2, and then I will show the score here also. Okay, so hopefully this current screen is big enough for you, and this would be just the opening page. And you won't be so surprised because actually the second page of this that you won't see, that I won't have the time to turn page for you, is pretty much the same thing, just more varied version. So you will now actually get a taste of what Chopin's sort of repetitions are. Okay, so this is the opening 2 pages of the work of focus today, Opus 32, number 2. So with all the hiccups that I'm making, so I can guarantee you that this is with full efforts, full concentration of playing, and then yet I still cannot get through it very nicely. So, all right. So we got this flowing moment. Let me zoom in also. Okay, so what you have now on the page here is the opening few lines of Chopin. So and I mean we have gone through some Chopin work, especially the nocturnes, and we've spoken about 4-bar phrases, we've spoken about 8-bar phrases, and we also have seen some anomalies that were 5-bar phrases from the last work. But we should be mostly expecting normal things to happen, in the sense that it should be, maybe we're expecting 4-bar phrases, just like you're expecting a regular piece of poem where it follows some structure, whether it's 5 words per line or 6 or 7 words per line. It has a structure. So what are we dealing with here? Now, Chopin nocturnes are never fast, are never meant to sound fast. They shouldn't be an etude. And due to my poor playing, it may sound pretty fast. Let's look at the first Italian word that was written here, which is called the tempo marking. Lento. I'm very bad with these words because lento probably lies between adagio and andante. I probably need to double check on that. Let me actually check it. Find lento. I'm sure there's something even slower than andante. Okay, lento is generally considered a slower tempo than adagio. So I'm mistaken. So there we go. So, okay, good. So I'm taught a few things. So lento is actually even slower than adagio. Remember how the last piece ended, which you probably have forgotten, but the last piece ended with adagio. And now it's even slower actually than that. So lento is even slower, which now tells me that I probably earlier was playing too fast. However, let me play the opening 2 bars for you. Let me just open this. So it's just a circled bit. So let's try it. I think the piece should just end. It should be just 2 bars, right? I mean, this almost sounds like at intermission, you just came back, right? You just came back from all the, let's say, all the wine and stuff and all the chatters, and you just sat down, and then here's my piece. And you usually actually, if you actually listen to some of the older recordings of not just live recordings of those concerts, maybe before the 50s, when recordings just became popular and or just became technologically available, you will often hear concert pianists who will play random crap like between pieces, some kind of a appetizer, some kind of a small transition from one piece to the next. This almost sounds like. Okay, so I seem to have a problem. Mute the vocal mic when I play. Yes. Yes, so there will be multiple latency issues because they're not from the same interfaces. You're absolutely right. Okay, so when I play, I should probably mute. Yes. Okay, I should probably mute at least this vocal mic. Okay, so I will try. I'll try to do that. I'm just getting a live update from Nathan, who is also listening. So thanks to monitor that things are doing okay. So okay, I'll try my best to do that. Okay, so the what was I saying? I was saying that folks actually often transition. Concert pianists often transition between pieces by using actually a pianistic gesture to say that, okay, I'm going to play the next piece and I'm going to transition from maybe sometimes one key to another. So that's why they're musicians. They're like true musicians don't take themselves very seriously. They just sit down and say, okay, I have a plan to tell a story, and then my plan is to go from story A to story B. Now, since everybody is just clapping just now and I want to calm everybody down or something, and here I think is a nice musical gesture that I can make to transition from one to the next. And somebody would just play like a scale or play like some arpeggios, some harmonic progressions. I will have examples set up later on when we talk more about this kind of tradition. Just examples where concert pianists just play something. But what's important here is this sounds like that. Like, who has a fermata written in the second bar of a piece that you're about to play? It's almost as if you're trying to calm the nerves and you just sit down. You can just say, hey, let me just play the first two bars because I have a fermata. I can wait a little bit until the sound decays. And then when I'm also nice and ready, and then bam, I'm going to start playing. Because what's coming afterwards is really a large storytelling line. It's very long. It's very long. So okay, so this is what I am saying that, okay, so what you have just heard is a repetition of this pretty much the same material repeated twice. Let me actually zoom out for you a little bit so you can see the similarity of the contours. So for example, this line, and you will see it appear again later on at the end of the second line. They have the same shape, right? They have the same shape. So, but how many bars has occurred between the current one, highlighted one, and the one at the end of the second bar? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Yes? So actually, this is a long phrase, but it's a 4-bar phrase. And then it gets repeated. It gets varied. It gets embellished, Chopinistically embellished. And then you have other sort of stuff, other developments. He can't repeat it 3 times, right? Okay. What is then special about Chopin's requirement here? Sempre piano e legato. So always quiet, and legato means connected, right? Yes? So that's your full. So actually, the second repetition of the same line has a bit of new developments because it has a bit of a new harmony. So I'm not going to even say that this is exactly repeated items twice. You should really think as similar material, but it's actually a comma, not a period between the two lines, between the two seemingly repeated similar lines. It's a comma. I am not as well read as my father, who will be able to quote some Chinese poem that actually starts the first two lines the same way, but end a bit differently. I cannot think of any at the moment. But we just need to find examples. I think just need to find examples, and I think they will be very nice examples because basically, long ago, when you're in the field of poetry, they align somehow using text, but they somehow align also musically with the structure of music, of at least at the moment piano music. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much on things that I don't know too much about, but that's an observation, and I wish that more can be done that way. Of course, I will always also try to find in English literature or maybe other literature that has this kind of feature where poems start things in the same way, but then they end the conclusion of that phrase differently. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, so the as you heard, now I didn't even flip the page for you because I didn't have to. Everything that you have heard have been heard already. Everything that you have heard, they are repeated on the next page with a bit more embellishment. So why don't we just look at the part where is new, that stuff that is new on the page right now? What do they look like? we're back here. Yes, so we're back. And then you repeat again. So there's only one part that is really stands out is something like this, right? Something like this. Yeah. Do you find that the melody is not undulating too much? It is just, it has ups and downs, but it's not trying to jump too much other than that really large embellishment that you heard. So Chopin also made this part equally singable, but also not singable due to these embellishments, because this is going to be quite a challenge for a singer to sing. So at the same time, this is not also marked cantabile. Cantabile belongs to another work that we started this whole business of nocturne business. This cantabile means sing song-like. And this is song-like, but at the same time, it's pianistic. It's not truly like a song. Okay, we have an opening line, and then we have a development, and then you quickly repeat yourself, actually repeat all the way down to where we have stopped playing. So if you were to say that, okay, then we just stop here and just call it a day, as in this is Chopin Nocturne, Opus 32, number 2. We're happy that this is a very mellow tone. I'm going to call it, this is pretty warm. This has questions, but it's mostly pretty warm. Mostly actually pretty, what would be a color that I give this? Not red, not like dark red, but yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know what kind of color I will give this. But at least it's not a cold color. It's not a cold color. The key that we have here, if we want to be technical, is called A flat major. The first note, the first chord tells you that. The opening chord is already, I'm gonna now just call, let's say, some attention to it. So even if you don't read music, you look at something and say, okay, what would be the most, let's say, the word is the most salient part of this opening sequence, as if people are just sitting down and you just start playing. So I'm gonna play this, and you can listen to the sound and match with what's on the sort of on the screen right now. I'll play this rolls faster, okay, so that you think it's one thing. Notice that it starts with the same chord, it ended with the same chord, same configuration, exactly the same sound. But why is there a need to go from one place back to itself? Why don't you just play the same thing twice and then say, okay, hey, everybody sit down. Why don't you just do that? I think it sounds perfectly normal also as well, as in if your opening line is to sort of show, if your opening line is to just demonstrate that you have done some calling it together, right? then just make sure it does the job, and that's it. So what's happening? The what's so special now? Okay, so I'm trying to tease this out. Let's try again. So now suppose I only play part of this sequence. Hey, let's try this. I'm going to play a sequence and I'm going to hide something. And see if you can tell just from that highlighted text there, you can tell which part that I hid. Okay? If it is not obvious, then I will also then play again as is. Did it make a difference? Okay, so I will now put everything on the keyboard, as in I will play every instance where there is a change of chord, even though you just see little movements, but I'll tell you where it is. So this is the first one, and also how it ends. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. Here's the fourth one. And here's the end. Well, let me do this a bit more quickly. If the first chord is warm, then the second chord is also pretty warm. Lost a little bit of warmth, but then it just turned a little bit. What do you hear? Maybe it's hesitation. We spoke about hesitation very briefly in the last nocturne. There were hesitations because I forgot what the context was. I think the context was at the stomach dropping chord, right? So there I call there's hesitation in the left-hand rhythm, but then there's also urgency. I think here it's mostly hesitation. It is, you're generally in the motion of moving forward, but there is hesitation of sort of, you can also say that you are the person moving forward, but you all of a sudden you stopped a little bit and you looked back, and then your general motion is still going back, is still going forward. So this is how I feel, even through a little change like that, because remember, this is the beginning, this is the opening of a piece, and first impressions last. They could plant a very small seed in your hearing experience that you may not be too aware of, that you may not even be too impressed by it. But if that seed has left a tiny bit of impression, that seed can grow into the process at which you're going to experience the rest of the piece. So if initially I just tell you, if I just tell you this, then the whole piece may be exactly like that, which is flat, because there's no movement. But only when you have a journey, when you have a journey like Snapshot, this could give you some inspiration to listen on. So, I think the opening 2 lines is actually a miniature of this entire piece. Now, you haven't heard the middle part. I'm gonna need some time to practice the middle part, so I will not play it today. But probably I want to give you some sort of anticipation of what the second part is going to be like. Because you kind of know what the first part is like already. The first part sounds like this. The first part sounds like this. I can go on and just play the rest, play the full first part, but it will just almost sound like this. It has little turns in the middle and stuff, but then it leads to something that is still warm, pretty warm. Okay? Now, we could go on now, so we still have a bit of time. So why don't we talk about why I connected this piece with something that you may think has nothing to do with the current work. So at the beginning of the stream, I played the Chopin Fantasy in F minor. How is that even relevant to what we talk about today? So now I would like you to pay attention to the configuration in the left hand, because every time we talk about melody and we recognize melody now, we are pretty good at recognizing melody now, and they sound, we can talk about it. But I would also like to mention there's always, okay, when you have, let's say, red flowers, you always need the green leaves, right? So you always need the contrast. You always need the support to provide you the background, the context at which in which the melody is sung. So let's look at the left-hand configuration, and maybe we can also go back to how the left-hand configuration paints the background in previous nocturnes. So this is the construction of the left hand. Everything is based as in the bottom, the lowest note is the first note of every configuration. You may feel bum, 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 bum. This is in 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But the gesture is almost like my hand gesture as well. It's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not vertical, right? It's not vertical. It is right. It has a line. It's not vertical. It's you have 1, 2. Forward. It has back and forth, but very small amplitudes, So does this work as a barcarolle? Maybe not. We can argue. I'm just throwing ideas out here. I don't think it's fully like a barcarolle. So when you're in a boat, you have this rock back and forth moment. Maybe there could be some theory they can buy into this, but I'm just putting this as a speculation. So let's just recall a little bit into what the configuration was in the previous nocturnes. Just a little bit. So this. Dee da dee da dee da dee da. So there is also a rocking back and forth, but with two notes, right? It has 1, 2, 1, 2. It has that rocking feeling. So that's why I even called this nocturne, the nocturne that we heard last time, I almost call it a lullaby, some kind of a lullaby. And it sounds very like a lullaby. And then you have your famous one. What are the units here? It's bum 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 bum. So it's actually a longer beat. It's a longer beat. That is also different from a lullaby. They're just swinging this way, right? Okay. What about Opus 27 number 1? It is quiet, but I think your boat is about to tilt because this is actually a little bit lopsided. So maybe if we sort of really want to buy into the idea that Chopin has to do with boats. Now, Chopin does have a lot of life experience with boats because he went to the Spanish island Mallorca Mallorca, right, to spend time with George Sand, and that's actually where he wrote most of his preludes and many other works, including this one, Opus 27. So you may think that his experience with boats have helped him paint a lot of left hand in the setting of boat rides, whether they're in lakes, in river, or maybe in the sea. Yes. So this is where a lot of those connections are made. I'm gonna then call to even further. What was this? We spoke about the construction of the left hand of this one. This is still totally different from before, right? Still totally different. Finally, we found something that is similar, right? These two are very close. These two are very close. Okay. This is nowhere close. Nowhere close to anything else that it's very unique. It's unique. So now we are getting back to where we started, which is this is actually the first time that this kind of configuration manifested themselves. And it's also not a 1-2 rock, right? It's bum 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 ding dong dong. It's actually in triplets. Also, now you had triplets before, right? You had it before, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't in 4s. It was in 3s. It was in groups of 3s of those triplets. Here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we move forward. So that also gave the motor of the piece, the backdrop of the piece. Is you hear this undulating current. even just with the left hand, I'm already feeling very positive of the piece. Okay, so that's sort of a way of also reading music is, okay, just compare to its sort of compare across the same genre and find the differences. And you will quickly realize that Chopin is not a one-trick pony. He is a jack of all trades and master of all trades. So he is able to create sort of, if you really buy the story that all of these are considered to be on the boat, then he has all of these techniques to represent different situations on the boat. If the boat story really bites. I'm not yet convinced that all of these are boats. Very clearly, some of them are not boats. But if you happen to align, you're going to have to believe something, right? So, yeah, there we go. So, for the last 3 minutes, I'm just going to point out exactly why I played the Chopin F minor Fantasy. So remember that here we're dealing with, let's look at the left hand. Dee da da, dee da da, dee da. We're looking at this figure, right? Okay, let's go to the Fantasy. So, in part of the Fantasy, there is a section that sounds like this. I don't know whether I need to say more, that these are, okay, they serve different function in their respective pieces, but they look alike, at least, to the very least, right? To the very least. You have this figure. And who says that this doesn't look like? Their feel is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They always have this internal sort of revolution that is going on. Yes, that is going on. Now you may, for those who are more, let's say, picky, let's say, about similarities, you say, hey, the ones shown here, the left hand is playing single notes altogether, but in the Nocturne, very clearly, the Nocturne is not. The Nocturne seems to be playing double notes in the left hand. Right? You might be saying, hey, no, I think there is a slight difference. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But look at the right hand. How many notes are they playing? What is the melodic line in the right hand right here in this Nocturne? Single notes. Single notes. So this is a quieter section, right? This is a quieter section. How about in the Fantasy? Now, we're not going to talk about truly the Fantasy, but look at the Fantasy. Left hand, single notes. The right hand is what? Is doubled. You have multiple voices. So if you're talking about, let's say, conservation of voices, just 3 voices altogether. Except in the Nocturne, 1 voice was also put underneath to have the support. In the fantasy, it is up there. It is up there. You really want to sing. So you're one is supporting, you're using you're using a higher voice to support your lead singer. In a nocturne is you're firming up your groundwork, giving it some lopsided weight because the second note was stronger. Oh, not stronger, was doubled. Right? So you have some kind of a syncopation. Ba, ba, ba. But in here, it's in the fantasy, it is a little bit of syncopation, but not so much. Okay, but this is all the ideas that I have for today. I'm going to have to practice the middle part and then actually at least read a little bit. And then we can go back to finishing up Opus 32, number 2, which, in my opinion, is also an underplayed, underappreciated work. One short story is that I heard Evgeny Kissing play this work at a concert. He played Opus 32, number 2. I think he played another one. I forgot which one, but this one gave me a lot of motivation to study because and to those who haven't heard live Evgeny Kissing, it's an experience. He is so valid. He is so every choice he makes on the piano sounds full of conviction. He just means what he plays. He plays what he means. And that's something rare to come by because he obviously you can hear he has an opinion. And in this very piece, he took the tempo marking by its face value, lento. He actually played pretty slowly. For a virtuoso like Evgeny Kissing, he doesn't treat this piece as just some etude. It shouldn't be. He takes this as a nocturne, played it at its slower tempo, and made everything work. Especially the middle part, which we'll hear tomorrow. Okay, enough of today. So I will certainly do some micromanaging with my audio setting, and I will see you tomorrow.